Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. I sat contemplating whether or not I should do this live video. Earlier today I said, I had a lot of things that I wanted to discuss, and as the evening wore on, flooding happened, walked through Belmont East and saw the state of the community. I just lost interest for it, and I said, I wasn't going to bother to do a live anymore. But I still do want to talk about, what kind of bothered me today, because it really bothered me today, and it's concerning that 11,000 students regionally who did not pass and fail the CXC examination. And just as a heads up, I am going live for about a half an hour. Philip is going to start at around 9 o'clock, so between now and then you have me to keep you company while I vent and talk about just what really upset me today. So I woke up, and please share the live video for me. I usually have my laptop up and I got to share the link, but unfortunately tonight for some reason it is not connecting to the internet, so you all will have to be my video sharers tonight, because I am not getting the capability to share it. So this morning I woke up to the news, and the first thing that I do when I wake up is to check what is the latest news for the day. And the first thing that I saw was that article about the CXC students, where 11,000, which I believe of 20%, over 11%, are reported to have failed the CXC examination. Now, first thing I thought was, I can't believe that we are doing so poorly in terms of education, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but regionally, and that it points to something, which is that education on a whole, whether it's just in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it is as a Caribbean region, education is clearly not working. Education is clearly, it needs addressing, and that more than half of the students who sit the CXC examination failing, it points to something very disturbing. It clearly needs addressing. I, like a regular human being, started to read the comments, and from there is where things went downhill, because my generation, 30 years to 40 years, we tend to look at the older generation and blame them for the fact that they were backward, blame them for the fact that they bring their old way of thinking into doing things. But today what I saw disheartened me, because I realized that my generation are very much to blame for some of the problems that we're experiencing in TNT. And if you followed me on Facebook today, I went on a huge rant, because I couldn't believe some of the comments that I saw. Some of them being that, the students failed because some of them were running down man. Some of them fail because they don't care to work. Some of them fail because they just fighting in school and studying to take video and all of this. Now, before I get any further, I have to say that I very much acknowledge the fact that we have a percentage of students, we have a percentage of society who are not interested in learning. And this is not just in Trinidad and Tobago, this is everywhere, this is global. It's not a problem that is unique to Trinidad and Tobago. It is not something that will be new. There are some people who just don't care to learn, some people don't care to be educated, and they fall out of the system. But if we had to be honest with ourselves, if we had to be honest with the reality of our education system here in Trinidad and Tobago, of the education system regionally, we would realize that there are a lot of factors that are influencing the way our students are being educated. And the fact that as a society we are not willing to look at those factors, the fact that as a society it's easier to blame the students, easier to say they was looking for man, they was fighting, they didn't care to learn. The fact that we're saying this and not addressing the fact that there may be very serious root causes, one being not every student learns the same. some people, and somebody posted this today, he's not involved in politics at all, but some people learn through visual, some people learn through repetition, some people learn through audio, and we have different ways of learning. Tactile, there's so many different. And to tell a student 10, 11 years old doing SEA exam that you have to learn this way, to me it's, and we say SEA is child abuse, so we're talking about CXC here. To tell 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that this is the stat syllabus for the term, this is how you have to learn, I think it's backward, I think it is unfair, and I think it is disadvantageous for the people who simply don't learn the same way that other people learn. And that as a society, we're not willing to look into these things. We're not willing to face the fact that we have a so-called prestige education system here in Trinidad and Tobago, where only a handful of students are allowed or able to have a further or better, and I have to say better in quotes, education, because the last time I brought this up, I came under attack. And I came under attack and I had to defend myself, because we're not being real with ourselves. And if we were being real with ourselves, we would admit that schools like CIC, SAGS, which I went to, Fatima, Holy Name, Providence, St. Joseph Convent, that these schools benefit a very small percentage of our population, of our student population, while the majority are going to schools like Mokarapo, which is just across the road from Fatima College, junior secondary schools. I remember there was Belmont Junior Secondary School where there was constant fighting. Students were never in school. They said that teachers didn't teach them, and it's unfair to say that, you know, these students who have failed, and one of the comments that I heard was that if you fail, you should be made to pay for your own examination. And I had to, this one in particular, it really pissed me off. And I had to say pissed me off because one of the comments being purported was that, why don't these students now pay for their education? We're already living in a society where things are hard, where parents are struggling to make ends meet, but we're telling children that if you fail, we're not going to look at us. We're not going to look at the structure of the education system. We're not going to look at what we're investing in terms of social development, because one of the things that I have to discuss is that a lot of children are simply just not coming from homes that are suitable for learning. You come from a home where abuse is very much rampant, where you're not being encouraged, you don't have parents to sit at home with you to help you, and it is not the fault of the children. And I don't understand why is it as a society we have come to accept and be okay with pointing fingers and sharing blame rather than looking inward. I don't understand why as a society we have lost compassion for each other, why we have lost the ability to look beyond our own biases. And that comment about, you know, why don't we make them pay for education is such a privileged comment to me, because not everybody can afford to pay for education. Someone said, why is the government even paying for this? And I had to tell him, I said, do you know that education is one of the main pillars of a functioning first world society? If tomorrow we decided to stop educating everybody from age 3, 4, 5 to 20, you know what, you all fend for yourself. Go out into this world, pick up a trade, just fend for yourself. But we as a government are not going to educate the population. Within 2, 3, 4, 5 years, within 5 to 10 years, not even so much, you would see an absolute collapse of the society, because education is what keeps the society going. Education is what you need to keep the population constantly moving forward, where new ideas are generated. And this idea we have of education, where you just pick up a book and you cram, that's not real education. I went to UE, and of course, you know, I did subjects where I had to study and learn, but my most valuable education came from being able to think critically, which I think every young person should be allowed to do. And I can't say that only happened from reading. It happened mostly from being able to open my eyes And when I say reading, sorry, it didn't come from books itself, but it came from being able to open my eyes, being able to go to the library and read different books by different authors, different perspectives on how you live life, and being able to be educated and to learn is a definite trademark of a society that is progressive, that wants to be first world. And a government will have to be absolutely foolish, absolutely stupid to say that they're no longer going to invest in education. Our highest budget, I believe, after national security, or it's either before national security or right under national security, is education. We spent $7 billion this year on education. That is, for anybody who wants to understand what $1 billion is, it is $7,000 million. $7,000 million. And yesterday, Philip put that in perspective for me, where, gosh, I hope I remember this correctly. If $1 million is 31 seconds, I believe, then $1 billion is 36 days. Oh gosh, I think I may have gotten that analogy wrong, but it's some really high number that actually puts it into perspective, where you can really understand just how much money this country is spending. And when you understand the amount of money we're spending, you would understand and you would agree that no students, none of the 20,000 students graduating or going through secondary school should have to fail. None of them should be allowed to falter, and none of them should be told that if you fail, that you have to find your own way, that you have to fund your own education. Because let's be real, none of us had to pay to go to secondary school. So why are we telling the generations under us that they have to do it? Because we think that they are not interested in learning. That's not the case. And I say Trinidad and Tobago education didn't just fail overnight. At one point, the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago was ranked as one of the best systems of education. So what changed? And when we look at what changed, we could really look inward and realize that a lot of things are impacting the students' ability to learn. And like I said in the beginning, yeah, I understand that some of them don't want to learn. But there are also those who are being left behind, who come from abusive homes, who come from families that they can't afford to send the kids to school. And I see that reality all too often in Belmont. And it's something that bothers me again, it's one of those things that you see and you want to be able to do something about, but you can't, other than, speak to the parents. I see a lot of kids not in school, and that reality is not that the parents don't want to send them to school, but school is expensive. School is very expensive now. I'm looking at the cost of books, and I thought books were expensive in my day, but looking at the cost of books now, it is absolutely preposterous. And if you have 2, 3, 4, and 5 children, I can understand why it is difficult for some, thank you Carlton, yes, why it is difficult for some parents who are struggling to send their kids to school. Now, someone also said, who send them to make children? And listen, that comment, I think it added the cherry on the top of me being absolutely peeved today. Why do we judge people so much? Who are we to tell people how many children they can have? Now, I understand, in a society where you're struggling to make ends meet, you should probably try not to have so many kids. But for a person who has more than one child, why is the answer to a failing education system for the fact that they can't send their children to school, the fact that, and not just a failing education system, a failing society? Because a society, a working society, is supposed to be able to check on these kind of families. They're supposed to be able to put some programs in place to make sure that families like these have assistance, and it's not happening. But why are we as a judgmental, hypocritical society telling people that they should have less children? That is not the answer to students failing a CXA examination, and it's not the answer to all of us rising together as a society. And I think about the fact that, if we were so concerned about the lowest rungs of society, we would be much better off than we are today, because I'm realizing more and more that what we lack as people is basic human compassion. We lack the basic ability to put ourselves in other people's shoes, because we didn't have to pay for education, and because we went to school and we got 6, 7, and 8 passes, and because we came from a family that could afford to send us to school, and because we went to a prestige school. We don't understand what it is like for someone who has more than one kid and can't afford to send them to school. We don't understand what it is like for children who come from homes of abuse, who are struggling with learning. We don't understand what it is to have a learning disability. We don't understand what it is to be exposed to a syllabus that is teaching you one way, but you are struggling to learn because you learn in a different way. And our inability to put ourselves in the situation of others is where I think we are grossly failing as a society. And in being involved in politics, one of the things that I'm very much aware about is that you have to have compassion for people. You have to. Someone said, YDPP, you're going to go into office and do the same thing. If I wanted to do this the exact same way, if I wanted to do what the others who are and were in office are doing and were doing, I would have joined up with them. I wouldn't have joined a party that is small and only funded by the members, no big finances, and fight to do this the right way. We are doing this way because we understand and we have compassion for the people. The easy way out is right there, You could take the money, you could take the financing, you could join up with these parties and, pad your bank account and get out. But I can't do that. Today when I stood in Belmont East watching my neighborhood bakery sweeping the floor, sweeping mud out of the bakery because the floodwaters rose above 2 feet, and 2 feet is a lot when you're considering floodwater. I can't think about myself when I see people suffering, and I can't think about, at least where I live in is on a hill and it's not flooding, because once somebody is hurting, everybody should at some point feel that hurt for them. And it's what we are lacking as a society. What we are lacking is just that basic human nature that is it's fading away. It's really fading away, where we are able to just want better for others. And to the people, my friends, who liked comments and statuses that poked fun at the fact that girls are bad things and girls are they sleeping around and they study in Facebook and they're on Instagram and they're not studying school. For my friends like that, if you're watching this, I want you to know that you greatly disappointed me. You disappointed me, and for a lot of you, you actually disgusted me. The things that I heard some of you say was absolutely unbelievable, and I couldn't believe that people who I call my peers, people who are from my generation, could look at a situation like 11,000 students regionally failing examination and say that they look for that, or say that they deserve to fail because they weren't studying or they weren't interested to learn, or say that they should be made to pay to resit the examination, or say that free education should be taken away from all of them. Because at some point, you, me, we have done things. I remember going to school, and there were sometimes I ducked school. There was sometimes when I say duck school, I went to UWI, and sometimes I ducked classes, and we all did our own fair nonsense. But it doesn't mean that you should not have a fair chance. It doesn't mean that because you come from a certain household that you should be disadvantaged in terms of learning. Education should be a priority, and for $7 billion, which again, $7,000 million, no child should be left behind. The Progressive Empowerment Party policy, and I have to bring it in because people ask, you all say abolish the SCA, and you all say that it's child abuse, and you all say that CXC is, we say that, and we have a solution. I agree. I see is child abuse stories, the horror stories that I've literally heard of students 10 and 11 years old going through all these emotions, all this trauma, literally, to sit an examination that is going to determine the rest of their lives, and it is going to determine their lives. I tell you, sometimes when people pass through junior secondary schools, they feel as if it's a death sentence. They feel as if there's no hope for them because they no longer have the opportunity to get a football scholarship, or they no longer have the opportunity to go to a school as a prestige school, and this stigma follows the students for the rest of their lives. Our policy for that is to get rid of the SCA completely. Make all schools zoned prestige 10-year schools. It's so unfair. Actually, it is actually incredulous that it is not something that we speak out on more. That if your child passes for prestige school, you're happy, but your neighbor and your four other friends who did not, hard luck. And the fact that we are okay with leaving so many of our children behind is something that, like I said, really, really bothers me. But our plan is to make all schools 10-year zone schools, give students a GPA, give the class a GPA so you can monitor the performance of the teacher, give the school itself a GPA, give the constituency a GPA, and give the nation a national GPA, so that you can zone in and narrow in on the problems on the constituency, on the school, on the principal, on the teacher, on the class, on the pupil that is failing. A GPA is a very easy way to monitor the performance of students, and it's also an easy way to look at who is learning in what way and how they can learn better. Because like I said, not everybody learns the same. No two children are the same. Everybody are exposed. I personally learn better when I see and things are being repeated. Other people, they learn differently, and we have to understand and be fair to students like that. To put everybody in the same room and tell them you all have to learn one way is unfair. And it's no wonder, like I said, that so many of us are being left behind. And there's the fact that not everybody is academically inclined. Not everybody wants to come out and be a doctor or a lawyer or pharmacist. Some people are good, they're good masons. Some people are good carpenters. When you have a problem, your fridge break down and your air conditioner working, you're not going to call a doctor. You have to call the person who is trained in that field. And why shouldn't that person be treated with the same respect? Why shouldn't that person be given the same access to a level of education like you receive when you study to be a doctor and a lawyer and an engineer and all of that? We need to create opportunities for different learning styles. We need to create opportunities for people to learn different things in terms of skills and vocational studies. We have to have these opportunities because, like, a society is diverse. It needs to have everybody in it. We can't all be doctors. Somebody has to pick up the rubbish. Somebody has to build cupboards. Somebody has to install the AC. And we really need to look at how we are treating with these people who want to get into these fields. Right now, there's very, very, very little opportunity. And to tell a child that you have to go to school and you have to do CXC and you have to get math and English and Spanish, I understand you. Of course, we want functionally literate people. Of course, we want that. But at the same time, we can't, no template is the same. And I really boiled along a lot today, and I should probably practice that more, because if I had done this video when I was really upset, you would have probably seen me parked up in my my office car park in my car, venting and quarreling and arguing, because, like I said, just how the comments and the way people basically dehumanize these children, how they made it out to be their fault, was really disheartening as a society. I posted a status today that started, "I was raped," and the comments under that was, "Well, yeah, look what you was wearing. My house flooded. Who tell all little little?" And that's just the society that we have right now. And where do you start? Where do you start? Honestly, where do you start? Where do you bring back the compassion? Where do you bring back the altruism? I don't know, but it has to come back. It has to be something that we pay attention to, because as a society, we will not move forward until we take care of the most vulnerable, until we take care of the lowest rungs, until we basically treat everybody with the same amount of respect, whether or not we understand their circumstances, whether or not we believe that children were willing to learn or not. The fact is, education is the job of the government. I asked people today, what do you think the role of government is? And the variety of answers that I got, and none of them, or very few of them I should say, pointing to what the purpose of government should be, which is the well-being of the citizens. We pay taxes to have 41 people in Parliament determining how they are going to handle our well-being. And if we have students failing the basic CXC examination, then we're not looking after all ranks of society. We're not looking after properly the well-being of the citizens. So tonight, like I say, it wasn't going to be a very long video. I really just wanted to talk about this situation with the education system. And I want to encourage people to be a little bit more compassionate. Try and be understanding. Don't just think about things from your worldview. And that's one of the qualities and the traits I have to really thank my mom for, because I can really put myself in other people's shoes and try to understand where they are coming from, even if I don't, or I have never experienced life from their standpoint. So TNT and anybody else listening, I really encourage you to try to be a little bit more compassionate and not judge before we speak. It's 8:59 and Philip is supposed to be coming on at 9. I want to thank you so much for giving me your time and attention, and I will see you all on his live video. Have a good night.